What do you mean she didn't get her groceries? She ordered 2 days ago. Victor Jameson leaned in closer to the customer service headset, trying not to show the sudden jolt in his chest. The voice on the other end of the line, a woman in her 60s, sounded more confused than angry. Still, it was enough to make Victor pause. He was sitting in a dim office in the back of Store 13, the smallest of the 16 grocery delivery hubs he owned across the state. His disguise graying beard, glasses, and a navy blue beanie sat snug on his head as he listened in on the call. The name on his fake ID badge read Doug, a new warehouse hire in training. Nobody here had met the real owner in person. With over 400 employees across the company, Victor had always stayed behind the scenes. But lately, something hadn't felt right. Customer complaints were up. Delivery delays were piling on, and yet district reports from upper management painted a glowing picture. Victor had built this company from his garage 10 years ago, pushing hand carts and packing orders himself. He knew what good service looked like and what bad leadership could cover up. So he decided to find out the truth. He picked Store 13 for a reason. It had the most missed orders in the past month and the highest employee turnover. Management blamed labor shortages, but Victor wasn't convinced. The warehouse was in a quiet town just outside Denver with steady hiring pools. Something else was going on here. Now, 3 days into his undercover stint, he was starting to see cracks. Victor stepped off the headset station and headed toward the loading area. Trucks were backing in, workers rushing around, sorting crates and sealing boxes. He spotted the floor manager, Kyle, a wiry guy in his mid-30s with a constantly buzzing phone in hand barking orders without looking up. "Hey, Kyle," Victor said, keeping his voice low and rough. "That lady on line 2, her order never showed, said she's called twice. You want me to check the logs?" Kyle barely glanced at him. "Nah, if it didn't get delivered, she probably screwed up the address. Happens all the time." Victor frowned. "She sounded pretty sure." "Look, Doug," Kyle cut in, "we don't have time to chase every confused old lady who can't type. We're short 4 drivers today. You want to help? Go unload truck 5. Victor stared at him for a second before turning away. His jaw was tight. He didn't say anything, but the way Kyle had brushed off that customer like she was an inconvenience instead of someone they were supposed to serve put a bad taste in his mouth. As he moved toward the delivery bay, a woman in her 20s offered him a friendly nod. "Need help with those crates?" she asked, already grabbing one. "Appreciate it," Victor said. Her name tag read Marla, and she had an easy, focused energy about her. She reminded him of how he used to be when starting out. "Is it always this hectic?" he asked casually. "Lately, yeah," she said, loading boxes onto a cart. "We lost 2 drivers last week. One quit, one got fired, no replacements yet." "What happened?" Marla hesitated. "Depends who you ask. Kyle says they were lazy, but the one who quit, Travis, I worked with him a lot. He was solid. Just got tired of being yelled at all day." Victor nodded, filing that away. "And people just go along with that." Marla gave a tight smile. "Most do, or they leave." That night, Victor lay on the cot in the back storage room, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't sleeping in hotels during this run. He wanted to feel what his people felt. And what he felt now was frustration. He knew Kyle needed watching. But something else bothered him more, the way that elderly customer had been dismissed. He couldn't shake it. The next morning, Victor asked to shadow the delivery team. Kyle rolled his eyes but allowed it. "Fine. Ride along with someone, just stay out of the way." Victor ended up partnered with Damien, a lanky delivery driver in his 30s with tired eyes but a polite smile. They loaded the van in silence, the sun barely up. "You knew?" Damien asked, tightening a strap across the crates. "Yeah, first week." "Good luck," he muttered. "This place eats people alive." They drove through the neighborhood, Damien navigating with muscle memory. After a few stops, they pulled up to a small house with peeling paint and a wheelchair ramp. "Mrs. Hinton," Damien said, checking the order slip. "She's nice. Hope it's not messed up again." As they approached the door, an older woman stepped out slowly, gripping a walker. "Good morning, Mrs. Hinton," Damien called cheerfully. "Oh, you're back," she exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "I thought they forgot me again." Victor watched as Damien gently handed her the bags, double-checking the receipt. "Everything looks right this time," he said. "Sorry about last week." "I heard it didn't come through." "It didn't," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't eat for a day. I tried calling, but no one answered." Victor's stomach turned. Just then, a voice shouted from across the street. "Hey, you gonna block the whole road just delivering to some old hag?" A man leaning on a car door was glaring at them. Victor started to move, but Damien beat him to it. "Excuse me," Damien said, stepping forward. "You got a problem with me doing my job?" "Yeah, I do," the man snapped. "I'm late for work. You people take forever." "You people," Damien repeated, his jaw set. "She's 85, you can wait 60 seconds. The man rolled his eyes. "Whatever." "Waste of time." "You ever call her a hag again," Damien said, his voice low and even, "and I'll report you for harassment. I don't care who you are." The man muttered something under his breath and drove off. Victor stood frozen. He hadn't expected to see something like that not here. He looked at Damien, who was helping Mrs. Hinton with her bags like nothing had happened. "Thanks, young man," she said softly. "Not many would have said anything." Damien smiled. "Everyone deserves respect, ma'am." Victor turned away, his throat tight. He didn't say a word the whole drive back. But in his mind, the decision was already made. Victor didn't speak much on the ride back to the warehouse. Damien didn't push. The van rattled along the narrow backroads, and the only sound inside was the occasional thump of crates shifting against the walls. Sunlight was climbing over the rooftops, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. When they pulled into the loading dock, Damien parked in the far corner and sat back in his seat. He rubbed his face with both hands, then reached for a dented thermos wedged between the seats. "I wasn't always like that," he said quietly. Victor turned his head. "I used to just nod and keep moving. Head down, finish the route, go home. But after a while you see too much. People get treated like garbage and management doesn't care. Somebody's gotta say something." Victor didn't answer. He just studied the man. The lines around Damien's eyes weren't from age, they were from weight. The kind that builds slowly, shift by shift, until you stop noticing it's there. Inside, the warehouse buzzed with the usual chaos. Pallets half unwrapped, staff rushing, Kyle pacing with his phone to his ear. He barked something to a group of drivers, then disappeared into the break room, slamming the door behind him. Victor clocked out quietly and made his way to the back, where Marla was restocking packaging tape. "You always this busy before noon?" he asked. She peeled a strip of tape from the roll. "Only on days that end in Y," he chuckled, but her face stayed serious. "You okay?" she asked, glancing at him. "Yeah, just thinking," she nodded. "You're not the first to get that look. This place rubs the shine off real quick." Victor leaned against the shelf. "You've been here long?" 14 months, she said. "I was doing contract work before, figured a stable job would be better. Benefits, schedule, all that, but..." She trailed off. "But they make it hard to care," she said. "You try to take pride in your work, but it's like swimming against a current. Every time you fix one thing, something else breaks." Victor watched her fold a stack of packing slips. Her movements were precise, like someone used to doing 10 things at once. "What keeps you here?" She didn't answer right away. "My mom," she said finally. "She's sick, needs care. This job's barely enough, but it's better than nothing. I can't afford to start over." Victor nodded slowly. He didn't say anything else. He just helped her stack the boxes and moved on. That afternoon, he volunteered to cover receiving. It was quieter there, tucked behind the loading dock. As shipments arrived from suppliers, he logged them into the system, checked for damage, and sorted them for storage. It gave him time to think. The problem wasn't just Kyle, it was deeper. The systems were frayed. The staff were stretched thin. And the people who actually cared, like Marla and Damien, were left to carry the weight of it all without recognition or support. By evening, he was exhausted. His hands were dirty, his back ached, and his phone buzzed with texts from his assistant. wondering when he'd be back in the office. He ignored them. The next morning, he returned to the warehouse early before the floor lights were on. The air was cold and condensation clung to the inside of the windows. He sat on a crate near the break room, sipping coffee from a chipped mug someone had left behind. He waited. At 6:30, Kyle arrived. He didn't see Victor at first, just dumped his bag on the floor and turned on the monitors. "Morning," Victor said. Kyle jumped slightly. "Jesus, you scared me." Victor stood up. "You got a minute?" Kyle squinted at him. "Aren't you the temp, Doug?" Something like that. Kyle looked confused. "What's this about?" Victor stepped closer. "Yesterday, an order for Mrs. Hinton finally got delivered. She hadn't eaten the day before because her groceries never showed." Kyle's expression didn't change. "Okay," she called twice. Nobody got back to her. "I told you," Kyle said, shrugging. "It's not our job to babysit every missed order. Tech issues happen. We're not miracle workers." Victor's voice stayed even. "You're right, tech issues do happen, but basic accountability doesn't require a miracle." Kyle laughed dryly. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but I don't have time for a lecture. We've got 4 trucks arriving in the next hour and half the crew's late." Victor held up a hand. "You don't need to worry about that." "What do you mean?" "I'm Victor Jameson." Kyle blinked. "Who?" Victor reached into his work vest and pulled out his real ID badge. The company logo gleamed under the fluorescent light. "I founded this company 10 years ago." Silence. Kyle stared at him, then laughed again, but this one was nervous. "Wait, you're serious?" Victor nodded once. Kyle stepped back slightly. "Okay, listen. If this is about the missed delivery thing, I can look into it. I'll talk to the dispatcher. It's not just about that," Victor said. "It's about your attitude, your management style, the culture you've created in this building." Kyle opened his mouth, but Victor didn't let him speak. "You've burned through more staff in 3 months than any other location in a year. Turnover is through the roof. Missed deliveries, ignored calls, and a complete lack of ownership from leadership. And the worst part? People like Damien and Marla, they're the only reason this place hasn't fallen apart, and you treat them like they're disposable." Kyle's face flushed. "I've been doing this job for 5 years. I meet quotas, I hit targets." "At what cost?" Victor asked. "Do you even know why Travis left?" Kyle hesitated. "He wasn't a good fit. He was one of the most reliable drivers on your team. He left because you berated him in front of his coworkers for a delay that wasn't his fault. I spoke to 2 people who confirmed it." Kyle crossed his arms. "Look, I run a tight ship. If people can't handle pressure, they're not the problem," Victor snapped. "You are." The door opened behind them. Marla stepped in, froze when she saw them, then started to back out. "It's fine," Victor said. "Come in." She looked between them, confused. "I'm the owner," he said quietly. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't speak. "I've been here undercover for the past week," Victor continued. "I've seen how you work. You're consistent, you're focused, and you care more than this place deserves." Marla looked stunned. "And Damien," Victor said, turning back to Kyle, "stood up for a customer yesterday. He showed more integrity in 60 seconds than I've seen from you the entire time I've been here." Kyle's mouth worked, but no words came out. "I'm placing you on administrative leave," Victor said. "Effective immediately. HR will reach out today." "You're firing me." "I'm giving you space to reflect. Whether you'll return depends on what I hear from the rest of this team." Kyle looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Victor's tone stopped him. He grabbed his bag and left without another word. Victor turned to Marla. "Call Damien. Ask him to come in early if he can. There's something I want to discuss with both of you." She nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. As she walked off, Victor stood alone in the quiet. He hadn't come here looking to clean house, but some things couldn't be ignored. Not when people's livelihoods and dignity were on the line. Damien arrived just after 7, his boots leaving faint streaks of melting snow on the warehouse concrete. He looked surprised to see Victor standing by the dispatch desk with Marla nearby, her clipboard tucked under one arm. "You called me in?" he asked, setting his bag down slowly. Victor gestured toward the office. "Let's talk." Inside, the small room was still cluttered with unused training manuals and an out-of-date whiteboard schedule no one had bothered to erase. Victor shut the door behind them and leaned against the filing cabinet. Marla stood off to the side, arms loosely crossed, her expression unreadable. Damien's brow creased. "What's going on?" Victor held up his real badge again. "I'm not Doug. My name's Victor Jameson. I own this company." Damien stared at him, then let out a breathless laugh like the idea didn't quite land. "I've been working here undercover the past few days," Victor continued, "and I saw how you handled yourself yesterday with Mrs. Hinton." Damien shifted his weight, unsure what to say. "I've worked with a lot of people over the years," Victor said. "You didn't just do your job, you did the right thing when no one was watching." Damien's jaw tensed. "I didn't do it for recognition." "I know," Victor said. "That's what makes it worth recognizing." He paused, then looked to Marla. "And you," he said. "You've been holding this place up with duct tape and grit. I've seen it. You're organized, you're sharp, and you've stepped up without being asked." Marla didn't respond right away. She glanced at Damien briefly, then back at Victor. "What are you planning?" she asked. Victor folded his arms. "Rebuilding. This location's been neglected too long. I let middle managers run with too much autonomy without oversight. That ends now." Damien rubbed his palms together, processing. "So what happens to the rest of us in the meantime?" Victor nodded. "That's the part I wanted to discuss. I need interim leadership here, someone who understands the ground-level reality and knows how to treat people. I want you two to help guide the team while we restructure." Neither of them spoke. Marla looked taken aback, and Damien's brow furrowed like he was still catching up. "You're serious," Damien said. "I don't toss around titles casually," Victor replied. "This isn't ceremonial. I need people I trust in place who can restore balance here while we overhaul the systems." Marla eyed him carefully. "We're still short-staffed. The systems are a mess. Kyle left his desk a disaster. You're asking us to step into that?" "I am," Victor said, "but not without backup. I've flown in 2 regional operations coordinators. They'll be here by tomorrow to support with scheduling, inventory, and training. I've also approved overtime bonuses for the next 2 weeks for anyone who volunteers to stay past shift." Damien's eyes narrowed. "You're paying people more to do the same work they've been struggling through," Victor nodded. "Yes, because they've earned it, and because I'm not asking people to keep pushing without giving something back." Marla tilted her head slightly. "And long-term," Victor looked her directly in the eye. "We're restructuring how site-level decisions are made, more transparency, better escalation paths, and a staffing ramp-up plan that doesn't leave people scrambling to cover gaps." Damien exhaled through his nose, still absorbing. "You really were paying attention." "I didn't come here to play dress-up," Victor said. "I came because I stopped trusting the filtered reports I was getting. Turns out I was right to." Marla took a step forward. "If we do this, we do it our way, no empty slogans." "No patch jobs." "Agreed," Victor said. Damien crossed his arms. "Then let's start by fixing the dispatch board. Half of yesterday's routes are still marked incomplete." Victor smiled faintly. "Let's get to work." By mid-morning, the warehouse had taken on a different rhythm. The changes weren't dramatic, no music playing, no speeches made, but the atmosphere was undeniably shifting. Marla gathered the team leads by the service desk and laid out an updated rotation schedule. She didn't raise her voice, didn't gesture dramatically. She just spoke clearly, made sure every person understood their role, and reassigned 2 floaters to assist with loading instead of stocking. It bought them a little breathing room. Damien, meanwhile, walked the delivery prep area, quietly checking labels and helping new drivers verify their manifests. He didn't issue orders, just asked questions. Most of the drivers were younger than him, and a few looked surprised to be asked what they thought about the new route software. One of them, a soft-spoken guy named Leo, mentioned a glitch that sometimes duplicated addresses. Damien made a note and flagged it to the coordinator when she arrived that afternoon. Victor stayed on the floor, watching. He wasn't giving speeches or issuing edicts. He was observing, listening. When someone asked him where the spare printer toner was, he found it. When a crate came in unsealed, he helped repack it. It wasn't flashy. It was real. At noon, Victor stepped outside for air. The snow had stopped and the sky was a pale gray. A delivery van pulled up and a young woman stepped down, rubbing her neck. Her name tag read Annika. She'd been quiet since he started, barely said 2 words in the break room. "You okay?" Victor asked. She shrugged. "Just tired, been covering double shifts." He nodded. "How long have you been here?" 3 months. "You like the work?" She hesitated. "I did. It felt good at first, helping people, but lately it's just been pressure, like no matter how fast I go, it's not enough." Victor rubbed his hands together. "You ever get any feedback from management?" She laughed softly. "Only when I mess something up," he nodded. "That's changing." She blinked. "How? I'll make sure you find out soon enough," he said. He walked back inside, his mind already turning to the next challenge. Fixing the culture would take time. But today had shown him something important. The foundation wasn't broken. It had just been buried under the wrong people. Later that afternoon, he called a full staff meeting. Not in the break room, it was too cramped. Instead, they gathered in the back loading bay, surrounded by pallets and forklifts. The air smelled faintly of cardboard and diesel. Victor stood on a low riser used for inventory counts. He didn't have a microphone, just spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've spent the last week working beside you. I've packed boxes, loaded trucks, and answered phones. I've seen how hard you work and how often that goes unnoticed." The room stayed quiet. Some crossed their arms, others looked cautiously intrigued. "I also saw things that need to change," Victor continued. "And they will, but I want to start by saying this. I'm not here to pretend everything's fine. It's not. That's on me. I let this location drift too far from what we stand for. That ends today." A few people exchanged glances. Damien stood off to the side, watching. "Starting tomorrow, we'll be rolling out new staffing support. You'll see more hands in the warehouse, more drivers on the road. I've approved hazard pay for anyone taking back-to-back deliveries. And from now on, if you've got a concern, you'll have a clear path to someone who will listen and act." Victor scanned the room. This company was built on the idea that people should be treated with dignity. That includes you, and it includes every customer we serve. "We're getting back to that." He stepped down. No applause followed, no cheers. But people didn't walk away either, they stayed. And that was enough. Back in the office, Damien and Marla sat by the dispatch screen, reviewing the next day's coverage. The numbers didn't look great, still a few gaps, but they weren't impossible. Victor leaned against the doorframe. "Tomorrow's going to be better," Marla said without looking up. "I believe you," Victor replied. Damien turned toward him. "You meant what you said out there. Every word." Marla reached for a pen. "Then don't disappear again." Victor nodded once. "I won't." The following week unfolded 1 hour at a time, not with sweeping gestures, but with deliberate, often grinding adjustments. Victor remained at store 13, no longer undercover but still fully embedded. He wore no suit. His name tag now bore his real name, yet he kept the same boots and faded flannel shirt he'd worn as Doug. No one asked why. He arrived before sunrise each morning and left well after the last van rolled back in. Not because he had something to prove, but because he knew trust wasn't restored with announcements. It had to be earned in the moments people weren't sure whether to believe you yet. The first major hurdle came on Thursday, 5 days after the staff meeting. 3 overnight orders had been misrouted, 2 due to outdated mapping software, and another because a barcode printed without a street number. The system defaulted to unknown address. No one had noticed until the driver, Leo, stood in the cold at 6 in the morning staring at a blank GPS screen. Victor found him in the loading bay later that afternoon. Leo was sitting on the back of the delivery van, his arms resting on his knees. "You all right?" Victor asked, standing beside the open hatch. Leo nodded, though his eyes were heavy. "I ended up calling the customer directly, got the right address, made the drop, but it put me an hour behind. Anyone give you trouble about it?" "Not really," Leo said. Marla just told me to skip the next break and make it up on the back half. Victor frowned. Did you skip lunch? Leo shrugged. Didn't want to fall behind. Victor walked over to the dispatch wall and pulled the route sheet. He studied it quietly before returning. Take the first half of tomorrow off. Leo looked up, confused. What will cover your route? You've been doing this job with one hand tied behind your back. I'm not going to burn through employees just to keep the numbers looking clean. Leo hesitated. You sure? I'm sure. He didn't argue. He just nodded once and stood to rejoin the line of vans being prepped for the evening push. Inside, Marla was recalibrating the driver board. She'd color-coded the late drops and added a notes section for each driver to flag issues, something the system hadn't accounted for. Victor watched her for a moment before speaking. Marla, take Leo off the morning shift tomorrow. She looked over. He behind on performance? No, he's exhausted. He covered for a system error and skipped lunch to make up for it. She put the marker down. All right, I'll plug in Damien for a few of those stops. He's been offering to pick up extra runs anyway. Victor leaned against the frame of the whiteboard. How are you holding up? She didn't answer at first. She just capped the marker, set it aside, and leaned her elbows on the desk. It's a lot. Everything's fragile, like we're one sick day away from things falling apart. Victor nodded. I know, that's why I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for honesty. She gave a quiet laugh, not amused, but weary. You know what the hardest part is? The silence after people leave. You don't even hear doors slam anymore. They just vanish. He didn't know how to answer that, so he didn't try to. Later that evening, the two regional coordinators he'd brought in gathered with Victor in the back office. Their reports were dense but pointed. Missing documentation, inconsistent shift protocols, and a backlog of unresolved customer complaints dating back nearly 6 weeks. The warehouse was functioning, but barely. The only reason it hadn't collapsed, they confirmed, was the quiet intervention of floor staff like Marla and Damien. They're not just picking up slack, one of the coordinators said. They're holding the entire operation together. Victor leaned back in his chair. Then it's time we stop treating them like stopgaps. The following morning, Victor called Damien into the office. He didn't make it formal. Just waited by the loading bay until Damien came in, then gestured toward the back. Damien stepped inside, brushing snow off his jacket. Something wrong? No, Victor said. Something overdue. He reached into the drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. Effective immediately, I'm promoting you to driver lead. It's a new position. You'll handle route mentoring, customer issue follow-up, and driver feedback. You'll also have direct access to the site operations team. Salary bump included. Damien blinked. That's not why I know, Victor said. Which is why it's the right decision. Damien didn't reach for the envelope right away. What happens when you leave, when this place goes back to normal? Victor looked him in the eye. We're not going back. And if whoever follows me doesn't see what I see in you, they won't be staying long. Damien finally took the envelope and slipped it into his coat. Thanks, he said, but I'm not stepping over anyone for this. You're not, Victor said. You're stepping into something that's been empty too long. In the next room, Marla was reviewing the inventory adjustments. Victor joined her quietly. Do you remember what you told me that first day? He asked. She didn't look up. Probably something sarcastic. You said it felt like swimming against a current. She paused, then turned to face him. I'm offering you a promotion, he said. Operations coordinator, officially, you'd oversee scheduling, stock flow, and training for new hires. You'll work directly with me and the regional team, full benefits, salary increase, and enough authority to make real changes. She narrowed her eyes slightly. What about when the site stabilizes? You going to rotate someone else in to run it? No, he said. You're not a placeholder. You're the plan. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding tension she didn't even realize. She didn't smile, but she nodded. I'll need full access to the scheduling tool, she said, and 2 more handheld scanners. We're short. I'll get them here by Monday. That afternoon, something shifted. It wasn't visible to customers or even to most of the staff. But for Victor, it was real. He watched Damien review routes with new drivers, calm, methodical. He watched Marla adjust a schedule on the fly when a driver called out last minute, not flustered, just focused. And he watched the rest of the team start to move a little differently. Not faster, but with slightly less hesitation. Like they were starting to believe this place might finally be worth the effort. The final moment came on Saturday morning. A letter had arrived. Handwritten. Folded into thirds, it was from Mrs. Hinton. Victor waited until the end of the shift, then gathered the staff in the break area. They were all still in their work clothes, streaked with dust and sweat, slumped in plastic chairs. He held the letter up. "This came in today," he said. "From one of our customers. I'd like to read part of it." He unfolded it carefully. "To the grocery team who helped me last week," he read. "I don't know all your names, but I want to thank the man who delivered my groceries with kindness. I live alone, and sometimes I wonder if anyone notices when I'm gone. That day, you made me feel seen. I hope your bosses know what kind of people they have." He folded the letter and looked up. "They do," he said. No applause followed. No one rose to clap, but the silence had changed. It wasn't uncertain anymore, it was grounded. Certain, Victor set the letter down on the table and looked around the room. "You've earned more than praise. You've earned a company that works as hard for you as you do for it. That's what we'll be building starting now." No one cheered, but heads nodded, shoulders straightened. A few exchanged glances, quiet but resolute. Victor stepped back and joined them, not above, not behind, with,